What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets-Haber. We are back actually together for the first time in a while. It's been since before the All-Star break, and we're ready to get into it. Sheets is going to share his screen, and we're going to go game by game. Sheets, how was? I don't want to say the time off because you've been updating everything, but yeah, and I know you were down at the Virginia Duke game, and tell people a little bit about what you've been up to, and then
it was awesome. We went to the Virginia Duke game. My son goes to UVA. Their fraternity had something over the weekend. The parents came to, so we did that. So we made a whole thing of it. We went to DC on Thursday. And what did we do? We went to the African American Museum, which I had never seen before. I never saw the wharf. What was built since the last time I was there. That was really nice. Maybe forgot the name of the boat, but maybe your boat will come flying in there one of these days. That's a good place to dock. And I did play DFS. I did all right in everything except for the NBA, which is not surprising, right?
Yes.
The one sport that requires full attention, I don't do as well. Actually, that's not true. So I mean, you got to own this, right? So here's how. Let's hear how I did in golf this week. So first thing I said was, all right. First thing, we're gonna have zero Daniel Berger. Now that finally at least he choked at the end.
Okay, yeah, he wasn't in the winners.
So zero Daniel Berger. Then I said, okay, I'm fully geared into. I think I had 60% of Matt Wolf, and an outright bet. I'm not exactly sure how he did. I'm pretty sure he got a 90 and then 100 on different rounds. You know what I mean? Not great. I did full fade Neiman and Cameron Young, which for the reasons which everybody knows by now. But I think I might have had one lineup out of 20 that got 5 out of 6. So that was golf. And the NBA was not great, but I did well in the other sports. MMA I did well, NASCAR I did well, but I'm kind of psyched to get back into the NBA where I have a little more attention that I could put on it. And now with that said, tonight's not going to be the night because I actually going out to see my daughter's show tonight, so I won't be able to update that. But I'm as close as I can be to getting back into it right now. So I'm at least ready for a good early look at the slate.
Yeah, no, I mean that's pretty cool about Ashley directing the show. Say hello and congratulations. That's pretty cool. Or producing the show. No, I mean it's great to have you back, and Rhodey's going to be joining me at 6 Eastern, so keep that in mind. We'll do a little show live there. Excellent. And we'll get into our early look today, which there's going to be things to change, but I think we can get a general outline. There's a lot of good, interesting plays where I feel like the ownership's going to be maybe a little spread out at the moment. Obviously, that'll change once anyone's announced out, but I think you're going to get some spread out ownership. So with that said, let's jump into this first game. Minnesota, Cleveland. What are your thoughts here? Because I think on the Minnesota side, they'll be unowned and maybe for somewhat of a good reason, but I think you could make an argument for all the big three as tournament plays. And then there's definitely some interest on the Cleveland side. What do you have for this one? Oh, did it freeze up? Looks like it froze up here. We're going to pause. Hold on one second, guys. What's up, everybody? We're picking up the recording where we left off because we had a little bit of technical difficulty, but we are going to talk about Minnesota and Cleveland to start things off here. Sheets, what do you like in this game? Because on the Minnesota side, I think you're going to get a bunch of really low-owned guys, and probably for somewhat good reason, but there's certainly like Russell or Edwards, I do think are interesting. And then the Cleveland side, there's a bunch of different things to go through. So what do you have projection-wise on this game?
So I see that I go away for a little while, and Cleveland has no more guards, right? Yep. So Garland is out, LeVert is out, and Rondo, who I did notice over the weekend played at 80% ownership, I guess, because those other two guys were out. He's out. So you got Brandon Goodwin, who is, I presume, going to get all of the point guard minutes at 5,200. He's currently projecting above 6X, which is, it's pretty good. That's one thing on Cleveland. The other guy that's looking, I have two guys that are looking, one guy that's looking not so great, another guy who's looking better. So Jared Allen looks all right at 7,300. And then if all these guys are going to be out, Lauri Markkanen at 6K, I mean, maybe this is like minutes chasing, but I mean, if you're telling me that he's now into the mid 30s on any kind of regular basis, I'm going to have to try it. So Lauri Markkanen, I kind of like a little bit. And then there's obviously always Evan Mobley. But you have to think with all those guards out that that Cleveland's gonna have something. With Minnesota, like you said, I mean, with all those guys in, with Beverly and Russell and Edwards and Cat, they do kind of, I don't want to say take from each other, but like you said, they're all going to be low owned as a result. I guess my top guy would be, Cat. But yeah, I'm kind of with the field in that I'm probably not going to get to too much of it. Cleveland, it's not usually the team that you like to attack anyway. So I don't know how much Minnesota I'll get. But I think the Brandon Goodwin value is one of 3 or 4, solid value pieces that you have to start with today.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I'm stuck on Goodwin a little bit. I do think he'll get a good bulk of the minutes, but I think Osman could end up getting a little bit of the 1 minutes. They could go suit with like a super big lineup. And the thing about Brandon Goodwin that's rough is that it's not like he's going to get there for sure in the minutes that he plays. Like he put up 23 fantasy points in 38 minutes 2 days ago. Osman is more effective per minute usually, but won't probably get as much run. So I'm sort of deciding between those two guys. I currently have them split up and leaning a little bit more towards Osman, especially because the ownership should be heavier on Goodwin. And I love Jared Allen. I'm probably going to save him for more FanDuel tonight. I think this is a really, really good spot against Minnesota. I mentioned all the time, like Minnesota just gives up 1 million offensive rebounds every game and so much at the basket because of the way that they play. I really think that Jared Allen could have a big night tonight. I also am not opposed to Kevin Love on FanDuel, especially at 45. I know the numbers have been ugly with Markkanen back. I don't think that's like a guarantee to continue thing. And Love, I mean, could easily slide into 25 minutes tonight. Also, anybody gets in foul trouble, Love's on the court. And again, they could play a sort of a funky lineup and sort of shift Love with Mobley, have have 3 of those 4 guys in, but still have Love in at 24 minutes. And he doesn't need to play the 16 or 20 that he's been getting. So I'm sort of interested in all those guys. Markkanen is a big question mark. What's interesting to me is how high his usage has been. He's been missing every shot too, but although he made all of his threes in the last game, he was 6 for 9 from 3 and 0 for 9 from 2, which is kind of weird to see. But I have a little bit of interest in everybody, but mostly it's going to be between Goodwin and Osman. And on the Minnesota side, I just think playing the completely unowned Edwards or Towns and the more owned Russell are all viable. It's a good defensive team, obviously, in Cleveland, but they're not quite the same with the roster as it's currently constructed with Markkanen in and the regular guards out. So I'm sort of interested in all those guys, but there's just a lot of better plays on the slate. So it's not really my favorite spot to attack. I might change my tune a little bit later just because I'm always a sucker for Anthony Edwards, even though, look, he's been absolutely dreadful. Some of these games you have to just throw out too, because like the game against Philly, I don't know why Anthony Edwards played 38 minutes in a game they lost by 30 and they were getting crushed the whole time. But I do think you should throw out like that game in general, just because it was such a blowout. And I think the guy who's not projecting as well as he normally does is did I miss something here? Oh, Beverly. I think Beverly is going to be overlooked tonight, and I think that he's actually a reasonable play at 5K. So a bunch of meh for me on Minnesota, and then Cleveland, Goodwin, and Osman. But even that I don't feel great about. And I just think there's better spots we could find later in the day. But I am going to have some exposure to the Cleveland side, especially, and I might force in some Minnesota just because of the ownership. Indy at Orlando in a really high-paced, what should be a high-scoring game. It should be close. There's a bunch of guys who I think are good plays. Nobody who I think is a lock. But what do you got here?
So with Brogdon back now, I don't think I'm going to get to stuff like Tyrese Halliburton at 8,600 for like a while. I think those salaries are going to flip eventually. As for today, I don't really like too much on the Indiana side. You would think that Brogdon would be a good play though at 7,100. So I have to, I have to take another look at that. But right now, I mean, I'm showing Tyrese Halliburton being a decent player. I can't do that with Brogdon back. I just don't think I'm going to do it. What's interesting for me is the Orlando side. So as I mentioned during the last like 4 or 5 days, I really didn't have too much input on the NBA. I put my projections up early or whatever. I never really followed up. The one that I did make it a point to come on to say and interrupt everybody's day in the Discord was how how great of a play Mo Bamba was in his last game at 4,400. And hopefully everybody blocked me on Discord. He ended up with a big old 16 burger. However, you give me 25 minutes of Mo Bamba, I'm gonna try that. So I'm gonna go right back to that. But aside from him, I mean, a lot of these guys in Orlando I like. So you got Wendell Carter Jr., who I mean, that seems a little weird to play at 7,400, but I mean, last game, 35 minutes, 2 games before that, 35 minutes, 2 games before that, 35 minutes. I mean, that's good stuff. Now, I don't know if I play both him and Bamba, right? So I think that if you played either one or two of them, sorry, you got to pause this for a second.
Talking about Carter and Bamba.
Yeah, so I think playing one of those is good. And then it's weird. The best Orlando guy from a projections perspective is going to be Suggs. I don't know. I mean, is Cole Anthony that bad? 6,800? I don't know. One thing I will throw in is that Markelle Fultz is active. I don't know. I'm not going to play him, but I wonder what that does to some of these plays. I'd like to think it doesn't do much, but I guess I would ask you about that. So I like either Wendell Carter Jr. or Bamba, and then my projections tell me Suggs. I don't know if I want to do that though. So it's a game like you said. I kind of want to play, but nobody's really jumping out at.
Yeah, so I think the Markelle Fultz things does get in the way a little bit with the guards. It's sort of questionable about how many minutes they're going to play him, and I mean, look, he's not going to start over these guys. They have their team. If for some reason he does, we'll know about it beforehand. But I really like Wendell Carter, regardless of anything else. Like, just look at the games that you were pointing out. I mean, these are the close games that they've been in lately. 35 minutes, 42 fantasy points. 34 minutes, 53 fantasy points. 34 minutes, 36 fantasy points. 30 minutes, 42 fantasy points. 33 minutes, 48 fantasy points. 34 minutes, 42 33, 37 fantasy points. Just when the games are close, he's a strong play. And this is also a really good matchup. And I think this game should be close. So Carter is my favorite. Suggs and Anthony, I think that I'm going to get some exposure on FanDuel. I don't have a ton of exposure on DraftKings at the moment. And Mo Bamba, I am going to get exposure on FanDuel, probably not going to on DraftKings, just because of the way that it works out with the shot blocking and the steals upside is just better over there. But I like, even Wagner is in play. I just feel like there's a bunch of okay plays. And to me, Carter stands out and Cole Anthony stand out as having the ceiling type of performances. I think Brogdon is going to be incredibly high owned on FanDuel at 5,800. Yeah. 2 things to worry about Brogdon. One, it's the 3rd game in 4 after coming back from the injury in a season that's sort of a throwaway. And he hasn't played he played the 30 minutes in each of the last 2, but it's the second of a back-to-back also. It does worry me a little bit, but I think that him being like 0% owned on DraftKings definitely makes him somewhat appealing. I think Buddy Hield is a tournament play that's getting sort of cash game-ish type ownership, but I don't mind him either. But that's pretty much all I have for this game right now. I'm sort of curious to see if Lance Stevenson's in, if Brogdon is in fact going to play the 3 and 4 in the back-to-back after coming back. I'm assuming he is as of right now, but if he's not, that's going to open up a bunch of stuff. And the one guy who we didn't talk about was O'Shea Brissett, who's just been like really, really consistently good. He's been a 33, 39, and 37 the last 3 games. It's another good matchup. They're playing in plenty of minutes. He also had 47 and 42 before that with a little 12 sandwich in between. I think that O'Shea Brissett is a really, really strong play that I don't think people are going to be like overwhelmingly heavy on. I think he'll be like in the 10% range or so. So those are the guys I have for this game right now. But the priorities for me are going to be more on FanDuel. It's going to be Brogdon, Carter, Cole Anthony, that sort of thing. And I will probably squeeze Brogdon into some DraftKings lineups because I think no one's going to do that. And you know my thing. Even if there's a big price gap, if he's going to be 40% or 50% somewhere and 1% the other site, I'm just going to take that shot. Assuming that he is going to get a full go and we don't hear anything about minutes limits or anything like that. Toronto, Brooklyn, what do you got?
So Brooklyn has like no players. Kyrie doesn't play at home. Durant, no. Simmons, not yet. Harden's gone. I guess Andre Drummond is a good play at 6,100. I guess James Johnson is a good play at 4,100. That's. I'm not playing LaMarcus Aldridge. Those are the guys that I get to on the net side, and then on the Toronto side, looks as though maybe all those games playing all those guys 45 minutes is catching up to Toronto a little bit. They've been pretty fishy recently. Van Vliet is questionable. I do like him if he plays, and if he doesn't play, then I guess Gary Trent becomes really, really strong, and maybe Trent's a good play anyway. Then you have Ciaco, who got a big price cut, right? I think it was 9,200.
Yeah,
last game.
They've just been absolutely crushed the last two games. So it's kind of thinking all the price.
I mean, unless Brooklyn all of a sudden became a really good defensive team, and unless Nurse all of a sudden decides that he's not going to play Siakam and Van Vliet, I guess you still have to play these guys. So I do like both those guys, and the Brooklyn guys I mentioned, Drummond and James Johnson.
Yeah, I'm very heavy on the Toronto side of this, especially, which is weird because the Brooklyn's missing, obviously, like everybody. But I think this is a good stackable game. This is one of the spots you want to attack. I have it ranked Siakam, Van Vliet, Trent, assuming that the guys who are there play, and then Barnes. But I really like Barnes as well. And then you've got Thaddeus Young as a cheap option.
Oh, I forgot about that. Right.
Yeah. So all those guys. The only problem I have with Thad or any of these other guys is they're rotating minutes in the front court. They've got Precious, Boucher. They've got Birch back now. You've got Thaddeus Young. All of these guys are going to be playing in like the low 20s most likely, but there's a chance one of them gets that extra boost of run. You'd think that most likely would be Precious or Boucher. I don't mind those guys for like large field stuff, but I think your main focus here is going to be on Siakam, then Van Vliet, then Trent, then Barnes. And I think Barnes is really close with Trent, but I like all of those guys. I will probably have a Toronto player in most of my lineups, and Siakam is currently my favorite. I like Bruce Brown on the Brooklyn side of things quite a bit. I think that he's going to be really popular probably, but at 5,100, I think he'll play a bunch of minutes. And assuming this game stays close, I think that it's a good enough, pace for him. And there just isn't enough bodies. And he's the guy who's probably going to play the most minutes. I like Seth Curry. He's my other favorite run back. And then I want to get exposure to Patty Mills and Cam Thomas. So I actually am going to be pretty heavy on these guys. I like Drummond. I'm a little concerned about what they're going to do with his minutes all the time. But if they're struggling at all in this kind of a game, I mean, we've seen Drummond play, 18 minutes with this team. We've seen him play 30 minutes. If he plays anywhere near 30, he's going to probably smash in this kind of a matchup. So I do want exposure. I have like a little note of one Toronto, one Brooklyn minimum for a good portion of my lineups. I'm not going to set it for all lineups, but it is something I'm trying to do. And I will get exposure to Aldridge a little bit on FanDuel, but I don't love it or anything. I just feel like somebody's going to have to put up fantasy points for these guys. And right now, Brown, Drummond, Curry, Johnson, and then maybe some Patty Mills are my favorite. But I want to see how the starting lineup shakes out and everything before I convince myself of anything. I do think Cam Thomas at low ownership is like a phenomenal tournament play. He could end up getting, even if he doesn't start, which I don't think he will, he could end up getting a phenomenal amount of usage. And he's a guy who can put up fantasy points. He just put up 37. So I definitely want some exposure to Thomas. So I really like that game. I'm going to be recycling a lot of players through it. What do you have for Chicago, Miami?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I think it's going to be a good game. Not too interested in the better players. So I like Butler. Okay, he's my favorite kind of spend up. Mm-hmm. But what you have to figure out is how much you want to play of Gabe Vincent, because he's the guy who's showing up as the number one value play right now at 3,600. Mm-hmm. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. But right now he is rated as the top value on the slate. I've neglected to mention that Thad Young currently was the second best rated value on the slate from the previous game. So I like Butler a little bit, like Gabe Vincent. Unfortunately, all the Chicago guys just don't show up for me today.
Yep. Got to give a shout out to Demar Derozan. What he's been doing in real life is absolutely incredible. He's now been over 30 points in, what is it, 9 straight games or 10? Maybe more actually. It might be 10 now. Maybe 11. I don't even remember actually, but it's he's averaging 38 a game over that period of time. It's a Kobe Jordan stretch that he's on. I don't want to play him for DFS, but I'm just going to keep betting the over while they keep making it under 30 for his points. So just throwing that one out there.
That's interesting.
I really like the under in this game also. It's starting to drop a little bit, but I just think that it's kind of too high of a total for a Miami at home game. I can't get to the Chicago guys quite. Like, I think that the ones that I could talk myself into would be Javonte Green or Levine, but I don't think I'm going to do any of that, to be honest. It's just too big, too many good other plays on the slate. And I think Gabe Vincent is obviously a solid value play, but I just want to remind everybody, like, when this happens and you get this crazy ownership on one guy with Miami, especially because Butler does play the pseudo point guard with no Lowry. So you're going to end up with, potentially Max Struss coming off the bench and hitting a bunch of threes. You're going to get potentially Duncan Robinson gets hot and he ends up playing, the 35 minutes instead of 24. All these are in the equations, and it doesn't need to be Gabe Vincent playing all these minutes. We need to find out about Caleb Martin. If he's out, it's going to make Vincent look even better and probably will make the other guards valuable. So I have Vincent, and then the other guards are pivots. Right now, I currently have Vincent in a bunch of my lineups, but I don't know that I'm going to end up with that by the end of the day. I probably am going to end up with a really good percentage of him, though, because I can't argue with the minutes in a good pace environment. But Jimmy Butler is by far my favorite play in this game. He's one of my favorite plays on the slate, and I think he's going to have a really, really big day. No one's really going to play Bam that much, and I'm kind of open to the idea of playing Bam here as a different one. But the one who also is interesting is Hero. Hero is going to get low ownership, but this guy he can fill it up with no Lowry out there. If he gets hot, he's going to be over 40 fantasy points, and it's a good matchup for him. So I have a lot of interest on the Miami side, not on the Bulls side, unfortunately, as run back. So Butler and Vincent are the priorities, and everybody else is sort of a GPP, not exactly a flyer, but just sort of taking a shot. It is interesting with Vincent, like at 30 times the ownership, maybe you take a shot on Duncan Robinson, maybe you take a shot on Max Struss in large field GPPs, just because they can shoot themselves into a game. And Caleb Martin, if he does play, also could be that guy. So those are your pivots off of Vincent. I think they're actually the players in the same team are the way Vincent doesn't get there. All right, San Antonio, Memphis. This should be a fast one. And honestly, I would have thought Memphis would have even been favored by more than 9.5 in this one. This feels like a spot where you have to worry about some blowout. But if you don't, I think we know what we like to do in these situations. Sheets, what are you looking at in this game?
Yeah, so if you could make it work, you want to play Morant and DeJounte Murray together. That could produce some explosive results. So that's one thing you could do. But there are also some other things. There's some values throughout here. So again, this is not the sexiest thing in the world, but you could play Kyle Anderson. He's only 3,800 for Memphis. You could play Steven Adams even. Boy, if Drummond somehow becomes popular, maybe play Steven Adams. I mean, he's been good. He's having a good year.
Yeah.
Brandon Clark, 4,800, Melton, 4,600. I think all these Memphis guys look really good. I'm not getting to the San Antonio side of things though. Maybe I should, but I'm just getting to DeJounte Murray, and that's it.
Yeah, San Antonio with most of their guys back, I sort of tend to agree with you. It feels like DeJounte Murray, and then everybody else is sort of meh. Like there's just a lot of bodies, and who knows how the minutes get divvied up. Look, if you want to take a long shot on Zach Collins, they just have not given him 20 minutes in the game, and I can't do that on a full slate right now. But if I was desperate for value, I guess that's one other place you could look. You're not going to get any ownership on Podol, who just, he's put up 52 and 58. Obviously there was an overtime game in there, but still he's got a ceiling. I just don't think I want to do it in this matchup. It's pretty much going to be Murray for me, and then Ja on the other side are my favorites. But I do like Desmond Bane and Kyle Anderson quite a bit. And I should have mentioned this before. I mean, look, Jimmy Butler revenge would be better if he was back in Chicago.
Yeah.
Kyle Anderson would be better if he was back in San Antonio, maybe. But I don't even know if it matters necessarily as much with him. But his minutes tend to be in flux, as his production. but he just put up 30 fantasy points in the last game. There's no reason why Kyle Anderson couldn't have a solid night here. His minutes are just a wild card, though. That's the only thing you have to worry about. There's a lot of other bodies that they play. And then ultra large field GPP play would be to throw in a little bit of Zaire Williams. But I like the Steven Adams idea as a pivot off of Drummond. I don't think they're going to be, I think that Drummond will probably get twice the ownership that Adams does. So I don't think it'll be like 10 times or whatever, but I think that you're going to get a little bit lower ownership. And I'm okay with playing Adams. Nobody ever wants to play him. Centers can beat up on the Spurs. He has, many routes to get there. I just think that this is a good spot for him. So I agree with that. The one guy I'm not getting to as much as I thought I was going to at first, because I like the pace of the matchup, is Brandon Clark if he plays. But I think I'm probably just going to sit that one out and wait for another slate, because I do like him in certain matchups. This is just, it's a good matchup. It's just, I don't know that he's my favorite guy in that price tier. How about Charlotte and Milwaukee for you?
Yeah, unfortunately for Charlotte, they played an overtime game last night and now are back-to-back going into Milwaukee. So that's not good. It's not good for anybody. I mean, honestly, it's not good if you want 35 plus minutes from guys who played for Charlotte last night, even God forbid they could keep it close. And it's not good for Giannis, who currently is projecting is clearly the best play on the slate. So what you have to kind of come up with is well, there's narratives. In other words, can you play Giannis with the idea that even if it blows out, Giannis has a big part of it? Or secondarily, can you play Giannis knowing that, you know what, if you get 60, 55 points in 3 quarters, that's fine too? Or do you approach it that if you're going to play Giannis, you better make sure that you play somebody from Charlotte? And if so, who would that be? And just for fun, if I was going to go for route 3, I guess my favorite value maybe on Charlotte, probably Miles Bridges. As I don't know, that would probably be the one guy that I would prioritize over the others, but nobody really looks that great. I mean, especially coming off the back-to-back like that. So that's my analysis of this game. I don't like anybody else anymore.
Yeah, the only guy for Charlotte who I think is kind of an interesting tournament play is well, okay, look, you could always play Plumlee here at 5K. I'm not going to, but he's going to look like a projection-wise the best play. I like the idea of taking a shot on Kelly Oubre. I think that there's definitely the minutes are in flux. He was on the wrong side of it last night, which might benefit him tonight. He's the kind of player that can play really well in a fast-paced game against Milwaukee, who gives up threes, and he'll take a bunch of them. So you don't need to worry about that. I mean, the guy literally shoots I feel like every time I watch, he shoots between 8 and 12 threes. I would take a shot on Kelly Oubre here as a tournament play. But really, that's like Oubre and Portis and playing the Milwaukee blowout angle. I think it's kind of an interesting pairing. I do like Portis. I like Giannis. Look, it's a great matchup for all these guys, so it's hard not to have interest in Portis, Giannis, Middleton, and Holiday. I think my favorites would be Giannis, Holiday, and Portis. But realistically, on DraftKings, I'm probably just going to play Holiday or Portis and maybe save Giannis for the obvious play on FanDuel. I don't know that you need to spend up and get all of his points, because while there is value out there, I don't think it's like the kind of value that is looking like obvious 10x value like we sometimes get, at least as of right now. Now that obviously will change if we get better plays as the slate goes on, then we can just sort of force Giannis in. But there are just other guys in the upper 9Ks like the Ja. I like Murray. I love Butler. I like Carter. I like Shea. So there's like a lot of guys to go to in the upper tier spending without going all the way up to Giannis. So that's just the way I'm sort of looking at it. But it is a great spot for all the Milwaukee guys. I think that you do want to try to get at least, look, if you're playing multiple lineups, you're going to want exposure to some of these guys. And I love the idea of a long shot, unowned Kelly Oubre putting up 35 or 40 tonight. I think that's a definite possibility.
Well, and you led into the other guy that goes along with the guys we talked about already. We talked about Ja being a good, sub 9K plus guy, DeJounte Murray being, a good 10-6 guy. And then there's Shea, who's 9,600. I mean, with Giddey out, I mean, he's gonna look like a really good play. And against Sacramento, he's gonna look like a really good play. And he's a really good play. And he's gonna be owned. I think he's going to be owned actually more than those other two. I think he's going to be owned more than Murray, and certainly more than Murray. I think he might even get owned more than Morant.
Oh yeah.
So I think we go back to that idea from before. You know, like you fade Giannis and you play both Morant and DeJounte Murray in the same game. You know, and hope that Shea just doesn't. You know, look, he doesn't have to smash, right? And maybe that, you know, you get the extra correlation, you maybe get a little overtime big out of that. But hey, make no mistake, Shea is showing up as a pretty good play here today. And on the other side of it, you know, Sabonis looks like a really good play. So if you wanted to do the same thing, you want to play Shea on one side and Sabonis on the other, you could do that. For some reason, Fox just not done it for me all year. He's not showing up as such a great play today either. So for me, it would be either, you know, if I played Shea, maybe that's the idea, is that I'd probably want to play Sabonis too. But Sabonis is no bargain either with respect to ownership. I mean, I have both these guys approaching 20% between Shea and Sabonis. So maybe you do yourself no favors with that. But both those guys individually do look like these very, very good players.
Yeah, I agree. I'll take I don't just need the narrative part of it, but I'll take a good shooter against who's going to get some run against his former team. Jeremy Lamb, I think at 3,800 is really interesting here to in a part of a mini game stack. And I like the idea of what you said, the Sabonis. I think you play Sabonis and Lamb and then run it back with Shea, or you could play Lamb and Fox. I actually do like Fox tonight a lot. We've talked about point guards against OKC before, and Fox has been playing a ton of minutes, and you know, the production is has picked up lately. I mean, he put up 50 in the last game, 56 a couple games before that. And I think that, you know, look, he's a little bit like scoring dependent, depending on how his assist goes, which seem to be way all over the place because of sometimes it runs through Sabonis, sometimes it runs through him. But I like Sabonis and Fox. I like Sabonis better, but Fox is going to be lower owned. And I like the Jeremy Lamb, and then you run it back on the other side with Shea. And I think that's a really good way to go. I'm not getting to anyone else on OKC at the moment. There's just a lot of bodies and a lot of guys who could do something, but it feels kind of wrong not to have more interest in Trey Mann. And that's one thing I probably will do. I mean, if you look at Mann's game log, it's hard not to have interest. He's put up 34 or more in 4 straight games at 5,400. Kind of hard not to have at least some interest in him. And Shea might have 40% usage, but when he doesn't have the usage, it's going basically to Trey Mann. So it's that there's a way you could maybe fade Shea or maybe use them both in a stack, because I do think they're both really viable. And you know, just to highlight some of the plays like I like to do at the end of the shows, like again, Jimmy Butler, huge priority. I like Ciaco, Van Vliet. I really want to get exposure for one of the guys on Milwaukee. I'm still sort of deciding which one. And I would love to get, some more exposure on the Brooklyn-Toronto game overall, as well as the Indiana-Orlando game. Some other guys who, you know, Thad Young, O'Shea Brissett, names we mentioned before. One of Sabonis or Fox, Jeremy Lamb, Shea, obviously. Those are sort of my main guys right now. But, you know, honestly, it's a little bit tough. And I'd like to see some starting lineups, and I'd like to know exactly what we don't know yet is going to happen. The one thing I am going to do is I'm going to play some Brandon Goodwin, but I don't feel great about the ownership. So I'm going to probably be well below the field on wherever he ends up owned, which I'm guessing will be around 40+% at these current projections. I'll take my shots with Bruce Brown, I think, in that spot, because Brandon Goodwin could be non-productive when he plays. And Patrick Beverley has to guard somebody, and all the other good players for Cleveland are big. So you'd think Patrick Beverley would end up guarding Goodwin a lot of the time, which is just a hassle that I don't see Goodwin like trying to take on a challenge with that. He's not like he's going to do it. He needs to do anything offensively. So I might lean a little bit more toward the Cedi Osman part of that game.
Let me go back for a second. So I wasn't paying attention. So you regard Butler as a priority to me.
I really like Butler. I think he's an awesome tournament play. I think it's a slate where you could see him. I mean, first of all, you have a close game against the number 2 seed in the 1 and 2 in the East, and it's a big game for them. And I think that Butler, I love Butler in those spots. And I also think that the Bulls defense is it's way, way, way more lacking without Caruso and Lonzo Ball. but they also do have Desonmu who could guard him. But I just think that Butler is going to have a big game tonight. I really do. And he's going to be a guy I play in quite a bit of my lineups tonight. If I'm not playing him, I'm going to try and squeeze in some hero because I like this spot a ton for Miami. And without Kyle Lowry, that usage is going to go somewhere. And you could even include maybe some Bam pivots in there, but mostly it's going to be Butler or hero for me. And it's leaning way heavily Butler. I really like him. I think that playing him his ownership will be lower because the other guys in his price range seem to stand out. But if you play like a Butler, Shea, Van Vliet or Siakam type of like core as your spend ups, there's no reason why those guys can't each get you this. They don't have the same ceiling as Giannis, but Giannis hit 65 and they all hit 55. That seems very reasonable to me. And that's sort of the way I'm approaching this slate because a lot of the value that I like is more in the, there's the 3,600, there's the 3,800, but then I like Bruce Brown at 5,100. I like Osman at 44. I like Kyle Anderson at 38. It's not like there's a minimum cost guys I expect to go for 10x where I can squeeze, to be honest. So that's the way I'm approaching the slate. Look at you doing all that money. What is that?
Oh, nothing. Just the tennis just started.
Oh, gotcha. All right, Cheats, anything else before we get out of here?
No, we're good.
All right. Well, good luck to everybody tonight. Let's make some money. And I will see you with Rody at 6 Eastern. Good luck.
Okay.
Everybody.
See you later.